for some digital magic to help you through your week? The Kingdom Report is here for you, covering the latest Disneyland and Disney World news, experiences, and events. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Kingdom Report Live so you never miss an update. And drop a subscribe on the Kingdom Report YouTube channel for new videos every week. Don't miss out. Join this growing community of theme park fans as we aim to connect you to more of what makes you happy. For more information, visit KingdomReportLive.com. And now, back to the magic.
Disney News Talk Live is on. Hello, everybody. Wade for the Kingdom Report hanging out with you this week to cover all the latest Disney Parks news stories and, of course, get all of your opinion on what's going on. Of course, there is so much happening out there in the Disney Parks ether, and we are here to cover it all. I want to acknowledge that we are heading into the Walt Disney World 50th Anniversary Week. October the 1st is coming right up, which is just insane. I feel like the year just started, and here we are about to celebrate Magic Kingdom's Big 50. I am pumped beyond belief, and I hope that you are too. I know that there's an awful lot that will be happening in terms of festivities, an awful lot that will be going on at Walt Disney World, and something that's really exciting to me is that Tyler Crouch, Katrina Menzone from Kingdom Report Live are going to be at Walt Disney World for the next week or so, covering all of the latest events, all the exciting things going on. Garrett Hassel, our Walt Disney World reporter, has recently moved, so he is in the process of going through moves at the moment. Plenty of Walt Disney World content still going to come from his end, but as of right now, Tyler and Katrina are so psyched to be out there covering the latest magic that will be sort of transforming in the Walt Disney World theme parks. And I hope that you are somebody that gets yourself on out to Walt Disney World here in the next 18 months as the 50th anniversary celebration gets underway. But it is definitely something that I know Disney has been, plotting and planning for. Certainly not as much of a starting point, I'm sure, as they would like to have had in terms of all the things that they would like to do, mainly because of how the pandemic has poo-pooed a lot of the big plans and really restricted a lot of the things that I know they ultimately had ready to be taken center stage. And unfortunately, it's delayed a lot of those things, but looks like more and more we're getting closer to a lot of the 50th celebration taking place, and they are daily introducing more and more things that continue to be added to that pile, which is really awesome. And I know that little things like entertainment and small acts are coming back all around Walt Disney World Resort right now, and are being announced for the near future. That to me is truly exciting, very, very thrilling to know that we're getting so much entertainment back, especially because, in the last year since Walt Disney World opened last July, entertainment has been incredibly reserved and very much in a place that just was not meeting the same levels as before. And I know that we've seen the same thing at Disneyland since it's reopened, and we all understand it. I think we all know why and exactly how they're going about this. They're trying to be as safe as possible and slowly ramping things up. But as the Walt Disney World 50th anniversary takes place, no doubt a lot of things are going to be returning and coming back, and the place is going to start to, it sounds like, look more normal than ever before. So that to me is, I think the greatest gift is the sense of normalcy that Walt Disney World's Big 50th is going to be providing. So hopefully you will get out there, like I said, within the next 18 months to celebrate as well. And make sure that if you are joining us for today's unique broadcast, obviously it's not Kingdom Report Live. We're doing this Saturday edition of Disney News Talk Live. If you've never been here before, If you've never tuned in to a Disney News Talk Live, it's all about you and what's on your mind. So we're going to cover a handful of news stories like we typically do, and I'm really interested in what you are thinking and what is on your mind when it comes to various Disney parks and news that's going on. And so we are going to take your comments. It will be a focus of this broadcast. That's what it's all about. Typically, you hear myself, Tyler Crouch, Katrina Manzoni, Garrett Hassel sounding off on what we think when it comes to various Disney parks news stories. This is all about what you think. So I want to make sure that you understand this broadcast is about you more than anything else. But let us not waste any time. In fact, I think it's time to move along to our big news stories of the week. And we're going to start at Disneyland like we typically do, mainly to talk about when we believe that the Disneyland entertainment team is going to bring back Fantasmic and World of Color. So, this is something that in recent weeks during my Disneyland in-park updates, I've been focusing on. We know that when it comes to World of Color, the unfortunate reality is it was left to rot over the last year. I can't believe that myself. I'm still stunned that they left the thing to just sort of dilapidate and become a mess, and over the course of the last year of really being not taken care of, things have fallen apart for the World of Color and California Adventure Paradise Bay area. So at this point, we are noticing a lot more construction going on in the region, a lot more work happening all of a sudden. The platforms were up this past week, as a matter of fact, the various platforms that project out the water and all of the hoses and stuff like that. It was in service mode for the first time in a very long time. So it looks like they're finally starting to work on this stuff even during the day. So even while guests are watching, they're out there. So it's not just a nighttime thing. And we've also known over the course of the last 6 months that this is going to be a very costly refurbishment because so much has been left to just deteriorate. So again, a very shocking thing to have had happen at California Adventure, and certainly something that I think I've mentioned before, was allowed to have happened in Walt Disney World at one point to the Spectro Magic Parade. You may recall the Spectro Magic Parade. That was something that a lot of people love, a lot of people absolutely adored out at the Magic Kingdom, and yet unfortunately, it was left out during, I think, a hurricane or a tropical storm, and was left to just be destroyed in the process. So, at any rate, that's why we don't have the Spectral Magic Parade anymore. It was just, I think, cheaper to, and they were already creating new parades, but it was just cheaper to go with the new parade that was coming, and then on top of that, usher in things like the Main Street Electrical Parade, which was in one piece still, but Disney, unfortunately, has a tendency of doing these things where somebody who was responsible somewhere, clearly, I don't know if they still have jobs, but clearly those folks who were responsible for taking care of these things were just, they messed up a little bit. But anyway, when it comes to World of Color, work is being done now on Paradise Bay. And then over at Disneyland, I witnessed this past week, as a matter of fact, work was being done on the platforms in front of the Fantasmic stage. So both areas are getting attention right now. This is incredible, and certainly something that I know a lot of people are really amped up about, the idea of nighttime entertainment coming back to both theme parks outside of just the traditional fireworks. Fantasmic is such a spectacular experience for everybody. I mean, it's my favorite show. It's my absolute favorite show. It's my favorite nighttime spectacular. I absolutely adore it. And it's been hard not having it around. But yeah, so Fantasmic, World of Color, both being worked on at the moment. So that was something that I definitely wanted to make mention of. However, we are looking at the LA Daily News, and they write that the famed Kiss Goodnight that the Fantasmic and World of Color nighttime spectaculars reliably delivered on a nightly basis at Disneyland and California Adventure continue to remain dark and are not expected to return until 2022. So, there is our first heads up as to what they think might be happening in the near future. It goes on to say Fantasmic and World of Color went into hibernation during the 13-month coronavirus closures of the Anaheim theme parks and have shown few signs of life in the nearly 5 months since Disneyland and California Adventure reopened in late April. The COVID-19 pandemic put fireworks, nighttime spectaculars, parades, and live shows on hold during the phased reopening of Disneyland and California Adventure due to the large crowds they attract. Since the park's return, Disneyland has brought back fireworks in time for the 4th of July and resumed the first parade as part of California Adventure's Oogie Boogie Bash in early September. We also have that parade for you on the Kingdom Report YouTube channel if you want to check it out. Recent construction work has given Mouseheads hope that popular Fantasmic and World of Color nighttime spectaculars would be returning soon to the parks. Extensive fountain refurbishment work is currently underway on Fantasmic and Disneyland, and World of Color at DCA. Mouse Planet reports that the new Pelican's Landing, the expanded seating area overlooking the rivers of America that is expected to open later this year at Disneyland, may also serve as a premium viewing location when Fantasmic returns. I said it! Did I not say it a couple weeks ago? Myself and Tyler Crutch were both thinking it at the same time while we were discussing the story of this new Pelican's Landing seating area on the banks of the rivers of America, that this was definitely going to be used for upcharge Fantasmic dining experiences, Fantasmic dessert parties. We knew it, and look at that. There's confirmation. It looks like it's coming through, so... At any rate, nothing official from Disney yet, but definitely something that we are not the only people thinking about, and we are not the only people focused on. It looks like everybody has the same thing in mind. When we see something new coming, we know that there's probably going to be a price tag attached to it, that's for sure. It says Disneyland has also sprinkled a little pixie dust onto two key elements of the Fantasmic show. The Mark Twain riverboat just finished a short refurbishment with the sailing ship Columbia now out of commission for some TLC, according to Mice Chat. Back in June, Disneyland refurbished the Fantasmic rigging and stunt pads used in the pirate battle scene on the Columbia, according to Mice Chat. And when will Fantasmic and World of Color return? Well, don't be surprised, they say, if Fantasmic remains dark until spring. So there you have it. Expect Fantasmic to be back in full swing by May 2022 in time for the 30th anniversary of the Nighttime Spectacular. So big year coming up, right? So not just Walt Disney World's big 50th anniversary, but then we also have next year being the big 30 for Fantasmic, which is just incredible when you think about how the show has evolved from that point to now. It's gone through a handful of upgrades, but truly, it kind of stands the test of time. And it's other than having a handful of additional tech elements that weren't available back in the 90s, right, being added in over the course of the last several years, this show really is something that feels quite representative of the original. I mean, there is very little that gets away from the original version of the show. Certainly some characters have come and gone, and certainly some elements have been retired, but for the most part, this show sticks out to me as one of those true Disneyland classics that to this day just wows everyone. So very excited to hear that the big 30th anniversary is coming back. No doubt they will probably make the entire year next year about getting people back to Disneyland for this show, right? I bet they're going to have a whole marketing campaign around Fantasmic's big 30th for the sake of nostalgia. They'll probably add some extras into it as well. But at any rate, definitely pumped to see Disneyland never missing a chance to celebrate a significant milestone. The story goes on to say rebooting Fantasmic would require Disneyland to hire, train, and rehearse a new cast. By design, World of Color doesn't face the same hurdles since the show has no live performers. Don't expect to see World of Color return to California Adventure until 2022 either, they say. Oogie Boogie Bash is taking place at California Adventure through Halloween without the World of Color Villainous show, and there was no mention of World of Color Season of Light for the upcoming Christmas holiday season that runs through early January. Disney World is reopening a pair of waterfront spectacular venues on October 1st as part of the 50th anniversary celebration at the Florida Theme Park Resort. The new Harmonious show on Epcot's World Showcase Lagoon is billed as the largest nighttime spectacular ever created for a Disney park. The new Kite Tales daytime show, coming to the Discovery River Amphitheater at Disney's Animal Kingdom, combines kites pulled by personal watercraft with animal puppets on shore. And Disney's Hollywood Studios won't bring back the East Coast version of Fantasmic in time for the 50th anniversary celebration, with the amphitheater's lagoon drained in late August. Tokyo Disney Sea has planned to end the nearly decade-long run of Fantasmic in March of 2020, right around the time the COVID-19 pandemic began sweeping across the world, according to WDW News Today. So you hear there a little bit of a touching on the Hollywood Studios version of Fantasmic, also trying to make a comeback for the 50th anniversary celebration. I have to admit, I'm kind of shocked, folks, that this is something that has not already shown up in Florida, strictly because Florida seems to be ahead of the curve on a lot of entertainment returning. I think just because they opened a lot earlier than Disneyland did. So, over at Hollywood Studios, they don't have a ton of nighttime things to draw people in to begin with. And I kind of anticipated, especially with their gigantic amphitheater, that we were probably going to see something along the lines of social distance seating. It's all outdoors, right? It's all, it's in a space that they could definitely move people around in. So at any rate, I just kind of thought that we would see Fantasmic show up out there at some point. But it looks like, with that lagoon drained, we are still waiting to get ourselves a little bit of Fantasmic back out east as well. And it's kind of shocking that, at this point in time, we're more so gearing up for potentially a Disneyland return to Fantasmic before a Walt Disney World return to Fantasmic. So who knows? Maybe one will beat out the other. I would really venture a guess here that as we approach the holidays, more entertainment is going to be added, just because Christmas time tends to be the busiest time of year for Disney parks. So I'm fully expecting that we will be seeing something along those lines coming very soon, whether it be a new show, a new parade, something to help gobble up the crowds, and if it's, introducing or returning something that has been retired for the time being or just absent for a while, I'm kind of anticipating that we are going to see something along those lines as well. So at any rate, I don't know what that could be, but I just anticipate that we are potentially going to see something along the lines of new entertainment or returning entertainment as we head towards the Christmas time, since again that is the busiest time of the year. Well, I am always interested in what you think. Of course, this show is about your opinion and about what's on your mind, and so therefore I'd like to know. Talk back to me. When do you think we will see Disneyland's Fantasmic and World of Color officially return? We heard some of the speculation from LADailyNews.com say not likely until May. However, Disney has not been very specific as to when they are going to return this son of a gun. So I'm interested in what you think. Do you think we're going to see Fantasmic back before the end of the holidays? Do you think they are going to use it as an anchor for next year for the sake of marketing and celebrating the entire year around it? That's my vote. That's what I think is going to happen. But more importantly, when do you think World of Color is going to return? I don't know necessarily how much work they have to do. As I understand it from our sources that work at the resort and tech services, they said it's pretty substantial. But I've seen Disney throw money at things before to get something taken care of quickly. And the LA Daily News story did suggest that they are not planning on running the Christmas version of World of Color, or at least just haven't announced it yet. And I feel like the Christmas announcements of entertainment shows offerings are trickling out slowly. I feel like we don't really know everything that's still coming because, again, this all goes back to the pandemic, and this all goes back to the things that we need to, consider, especially in the state of California, whereas the state of California has different restrictions than the state of Florida, and what Disneyland is going to be able to do versus what Disney World can do, based purely on what the state allows them to do, while we are still in the thick of things and dealing with the various restrictions and requirements. So is World of Color going to be returning at some point in the near future? Again, both of these shows, Fantastic Fantasmic and World of Color, all outdoors, all things that can be, handled outside, and certainly that's something that is allowable right now on both coasts, where everybody can congregate outdoors, and that seems to be perfectly fine. Be very interested in hearing what your perspective is when it comes to Fantasmic and World of Color potentially returning at the Disneyland Resort. Also interested, what do you think when it comes to Fantasmic and World of, just Fantasmic, coming back to Disney's Hollywood Studios? You think it'll show up there before it will show up here at Disneyland? Be very interested to hear what you think on that front as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you stick around. There's plenty more Disney News Talk Live coming up straight ahead.
All of us here at the happiest place on earth are delighted to have you as our guest today. In just a moment, we invite you to get your ears on and begin your adventure as you explore Walt Disney's Magic Kingdom. For your safety, we ask that you please walk to your next destination, and we hope that today you'll make memories that will last a Thank you, and may you enjoy your visit to this magical place called Disneyland.
Disney News Talk Live. Thanks so much for being with us this week in place of Kingdom Report Live on this Saturday edition of Disney News Talk Live. This is a very different type of setup that we do. It's all about your opinion. It's about your Disney Parks news. So while typically on Kingdom Report Live you hear from the team sharing their thoughts, now it's all about you and what you are thinking. So it's about the Disney Parks fans and seeing what's on your mind. We were just talking about how Fantasmic at Disneyland is being worked on, World of Color at California Adventure is being worked on. When do we anticipate these coming back? And you are certainly sounding off in our comments section. Before we get there, though, want to say a quick hello to Kenneth. Kenneth is watching with October Queen. They asked if we might be able to give them a shout out. Kenneth, it's so great that you could tune in and be a part of the show. Thank you so much. Disney Parks fans unite around Kenneth and say Happy Halloween to you, young sir. All right. And want to check in here with some of your comments. Looks like Jay Pike says, it is a weird angle to view Fantasmic for a premium view. Of course, referring to the new Pelicans landing area that they're developing right now, right alongside where Harbor Galley sits. So it's supposed to be a double-decker seating area, apparently, and they no doubt will be charging a premium for this, as we mentioned. So very much a place, I think, that will offer a commanding view, just because, remember, the Fantasmic setup around Rivers of America, there are three angles, right? So there are essentially three stages. So you have dead center, left, and right, all three of which have various screens, all three of which offer up a very similar, I won't say the same because they're not the same, but a very similar head-on view. So I think that that's going to be their selling point. I agree, it is a weird angle. It's not the dead center one, but it's certainly one that is off to the side and kind of gets the length of the Rivers of America from that angle. I mean, you get the whole river off going towards the direction of Frontierland if you're facing that way, and certainly the Pelicans Landing will be exactly dedicated for that angle and that space, and we'll look out onto the river from that side. So Jay Pike, thank you so much, and he also mentions that he loves Fantasmic. Yeah, me too. Rick Davis chimes in saying Fantasmic at Hollywood Studios is so much more convenient with the stadium seating. It is more magical in Disneyland, but requires luck or major commitment for viewing. Yeah, Rick, I completely agree. There was a period of time, I'll say about 10 years ago, where it was really tough to be able to see Disneyland's Fantasmic unless you camped out for a long period of time. And, that's something that I know a lot of the locals, especially people that were in that original annual pass holder group, people would just come in after work, people would come in, late afternoon, and they would squat in the Rivers of America area for hours just to watch Fantasmic on a Friday or a Saturday night. And Hollywood Studios having the amphitheater the way that it is, I completely agree. For the sake of convenience, it's a lot better with stadium seating and just that experience overall of being able to orderly file in. Everybody has a place to sit. You're elevated at certain distances, so everybody gets to see things differently. But everyone still gets to see things. Whereas when you're in Disneyland, you don't really get that, right? At Disneyland, it's luck of the draw, and there's only so much elevation that goes on at Disneyland. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck with everybody else, and hopefully you're in a seating area where everybody's on the ground and able to just look up at the stage, because some of the areas are standing only, and those standing areas, now that's where it gets tough, right? Because then you've got people in front of you that might be a whole foot or more taller, so right in your way, you're not able to see it. But I completely agree. There is a element of luck and major commitment, you're right, for viewing it at Disneyland. Hollywood Studios, though, there's just something about it. Even though it's grand and epic and they built the amphitheater for it, I got to tell you, I still feel the magic more at Disneyland. And I know you said that, but I completely align with that thinking of there's just something so much more, I'll say organic. That's what I'll say. There's something so much more organic about Disneyland's version of Fantasmic. And I think it's just because the Rivers of America, you see it throughout the day and there's not much going on and it's, very quiet. And then all of a sudden at night, it just comes to life and it really does feel magical. Whereas when you file into the Hollywood Studios version, you know that you're coming in to see a show. And you know that the stage was set up specifically for this. And so it all looks predestined, predetermined. And it might sound funny, but the Disneyland version just feels so much more organic and therefore a lot more magical. That's for sure. D. McGee chimes in saying Disneyland bringing back so much more entertainment than Disney World proves Bob Chapek is still anti-entertainment. Yeah, I know. Everybody likes to harp on the Disney CEO. Bob Chapek, he, along with various other executives in the company, no doubt see entertainment as easily cuttable. And that's been long-standing, by the way. It's not just a Bob Chapek position. For my decades of working at Disney, I've seen it. The first thing they go for is entertainment. The first thing that they go to cut is always entertainment. And having been a part of entertainment, I can tell you that. So it's always the first on the list to slice and dice for the sake of making a quick buck back. And then once things get flowing again and they start to see the revenue stream, they're like, oh yeah, and we'll usher back in X, Y, and Z shows. We'll usher back in that character over there, that sort of thing. So I don't disagree with you, but yeah, hopefully as Disney World's 50th anniversary kicks into high gear, that entertainment will all start flowing back. I also saw that the Casey's Corner piano player is coming back. So they have been gone a very long time. The piano player for Disneyland's Coke Corner came back before Casey's Corner, which is just wild, right? The Disneyland version, the Coke Corner pianist is elevated up on the Jolly Holiday platform now, so they're up on the upper porch area overlooking Coke Corner, but still, they were brought back first. I think that's pretty wild. Todd chimes in saying, I think they will time the return of Fantasmic with the opening of Pelican's Landing. You think so, huh? I mean, I don't disagree. I definitely think that they're probably going to measure this up just right so they can absolutely pack in the most amount of people and use that space correctly, especially with 2 levels. They're probably going to be able to potentially usher in even more individuals to see the show. So at any rate, I appreciate that. Terry chimes in, World of Color may be rebuilt a la Harmonious at Walt Disney World. Hopefully we won't see gigantic circular spheres and gigantic rigging in the Paradise Bay for California Adventure all day, every day, much like we're now seeing at World Showcase, just completely obstructing the sight lines and ruining that whole aura of World Showcase during the day. I got to tell you, I'm not a fan of that. I know a lot of people aren't, and people gripe on it a lot, but it just looks so bad during the day. At night, I'm sure, everything about it is going to be epic and, fulfilling and magical and so special. But during the day, World Showcase Lagoon is very tranquil, and these huge black rigging devices and staging and stuff like that out in the middle of the water, not only does it throw off the whole scale of World Showcase, which just seems like such a short-sighted thing for Disney to have done, but it's in the way of so many of those picturesque photos that I know people like to take at EPCOT. So thank you so much, Terry, for chiming in. Chuck says, I say next summer. I went to Disneyland last week and saw World of Color Lagoon, and it didn't seem much work being done there. Yeah, well, guess what, Chuck? Just a couple days ago, the platforms rose. So they're working on it during the day now. I don't know if this is going to be a consistent thing where every day it's being worked on or what, but the fact that they rose them to maintenance levels at World of Color, all of the staging and rigging, that means that work is underway and that they are now doing it not just off-time hours, off-peak hours, if you will. They are now doing it during the day, too. So that tells me that there's some urgency here all of a sudden, which gets me very excited. So maybe we will see some new things come our way. All right, folks, thank you so much for chiming in with your comments. Once again, it's all about you. This is your Disney opinion, your Disney Parks news. Always grateful to have you chiming in and sharing with us what is on your mind. Moving along to our next story here, and that is all about pay-to-ride options when it comes to Disneyland's most popular attraction. The Orange County Register says the new Disney Genie service debuting this fall at Disneyland and California Adventure will replace the free FastPass service with a paid Lightning Lane option and begin charging for premium front-of-the-line access. Star Wars fans who have watched the Rise of the Resistance virtual queue fill up quickly each day, often within seconds, have one burning question on their minds. What happens if Disneyland starts selling front-of-the-line access for the wildly popular attraction? The new Disney Genie service debuting this fall at Disneyland and California Adventure will replace the free FastPass system with a paid Lightning Lane option and begin charging for premium front-of-the-line access. The upcharge Lightning Lane Select experiences will allow visitors to pay for FastPass-like access to one or two individual rides per day and schedule a return time for each individual attraction. California Adventure's Radiator Springs Racers will be among the Lightning Lane Select attractions, with additional attractions to be announced at a later date. Disney Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro told the D23 fan club the Rise of the Resistance attraction at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland may offer a pay-to-ride option. Disneyland and California Adventure will continue to offer attraction access by standby or virtual queue, according to Disneyland officials. Attraction inventory will be set aside for Disney Genie Plus access, a la carte individual attraction access, standby queues, and virtual queues, according to Disneyland officials. Well, doesn't that just sound great? So they're going to diversify and split up all of the access that you're going to be able to have to the Rise of the Resistance attraction. So that means far less for standby, far less for virtual, because they're going to be splitting up a portion of that for the other two, both a la carte and Genie Plus. Disney has not announced the cost for Lightning Lane Select, but Disneyland Paris is charging $9.50 to $17.50 per ride for a similar service called Disney Premier Access. Rise of the Resistance debuted at Disneyland in January 2020 with a virtual queue that filled up quickly each day, typically in minutes and often in seconds. Since reopening, Disneyland distributes virtual queue boarding groups return times for the wildly popular Rise of the Resistance at 7 a.m. and noon each day. Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida has stopped using a virtual queue for Rise of the Resistance on Thursday, September 23rd, keeping the system in place for future use from time to time if necessary. Disneyland plans no changes to the Rise of the Resistance virtual queue at this time. It remains to be seen how Rise of the Resistance virtual queue access will be affected if Disneyland offers a pay-to-ride option for what is arguably the single best theme park attraction on the planet, according to Martin Lewison, a theme park expert at Farmingdale State College in New York, saying, quote, "That's the trillion-dollar question," Lewison said via email. "You have enormous demand for a ride that can only serve something like 1,750 guests an hour on its best day. That's extraordinarily good capacity in the world of amusement rides, but still insufficient relative to the demand. And yeah, he's right, but let's not forget that this ride often breaks down throughout the day multiple times. It's so complex. It's so grand in its scope. If you've never been on it, it is probably the best attraction ever created, just in terms of show elements and theming and overall experience and immersion. This attraction, though, is so big, and there's so much going on in it. Unfortunately, the problem is that these elements have to all be timed together perfectly, and unfortunately, throughout the day, that timing doesn't always sync up, and therefore the whole ride shuts down. I got evacuated off of it here about 2 weeks ago, and it was so funny. The Resistance and the First Order were working together to evacuate us. It was amazing. They just completely crushed the theming to get us out of there. But it was definitely something that had never happened to me on Rise of the Resistance. I've seen it down multiple times. I've just never been on the attraction when it goes down. So it also has that problem on both coasts, where it has a lot of downtime throughout the day, thus not being able to serve that 1750 guests an hour, even when it tries to. Offering a la carte paid Genie Plus access for Rise of the Resistance would likely make it harder to get into a free virtual queue, according to Leisure Business Advisors Managing Director John Gerner, saying, quote, "The overall goal is to offer more convenience and access to visitors that are willing to pay for these added benefits. Premium pricing for popular rides could make it easier to get into virtual queues for attractions like Rise of the Resistance and Web Slingers, according to former Disney executive Duncan Dixon. A lot of people aren't going to be willing to pay the premium," the retired University of Central Florida assistant professor of theme park and attraction management said by phone. Motley Fool writer and analyst Rick Menares expects Disneyland to place a high-end price point on the premium pay-to-ride option, with limitations on the number of Lightning Lane passes sold each day. Quote, "Lightning Lane is Disney's first opportunity to observe a live experiment of how much certain guests are willing to pay per ride," Munares wrote on Motley Fool. "There is an obvious temptation to maximize revenue, but Disney will have to navigate a fine line between the revenue opportunity and the need for overall guest satisfaction." So there you have it. This is something that we watched this past week, right? We watched as Rise of the Resistance out in Hollywood Studios ended up offering for the first time a standby queue. So we watched that happen, right? We watched as for the first time they decided to open up the standby queue and let people in and not do the virtual thing, which, by the way, over the course of the last year has led to irate guests who just weren't able to win the lottery of virtual queue, right? Sometimes it happens. If you're not quick enough, that thing sells out in seconds. But over the last couple months, things have been very slow out at Walt Disney World, and they started to witness more and more that they were able to not only get through all of the virtual applicants throughout the day for Rise of the Resistance, they also were able to call up all kinds of standby queues that they had for the sake of the virtual end of queues. So we watched as they released for the first time this past week a Rise of the Resistance standby queue, and it looks like it didn't end up being all that bad. The initial crowd looked crazy, right? It always does, that opening crowd. But after a while, the wait times weren't all that bad. And we were hearing quotes from 45 to 90 minutes. And I got to say, for an attraction that is the most popular in the entire park, that's not uncommon, right? That's not an uncommon wait time. Now, certainly, as crowds pile in for the 50th anniversary, is that about to change? Oh, heck yeah, it is. And will that standby queue become suddenly something that goes 6 hours or something like that? We'll see. But yeah, it's definitely something that it has been a unique test out there to see if the lines were going to be manageable, if they were going to be decent, and what was going to happen if they allowed it to be purely standby. But now I'm interested in what you think when it comes to Disneyland's version of Rise of the Resistance. How do you think Disneyland will handle Rise of the Resistance in the future? Will it also become a standby line? Do you think it's also going to become something that will eliminate the virtual queue entirely? We heard there that Disneyland officials are talking about potentially slicing up multiple levels of access. So your Lightning Lane access with your specific a la carte purchase and your standby and your virtual, do you think that they're going to attempt a standby only here in the near future before Genie Plus comes into effect fully? That I'm very interested in, especially because we just saw Hollywood Studios pull the trigger and go completely standby, at least for the time being, right? That can always change. So I have a feeling Disneyland might not be too far away from that, especially because if you are someone who wants that opportunity to ride and yet you can't get that virtual queue access, and I know plenty of people who aren't able to do it, especially people with big families, people that spend a ton of money to come visit Disneyland or Hollywood Studios, and specifically to go on Rise of the Resistance. If you don't have the quickest finger and refresh, you're out. You just don't get to go. And you have another opportunity after 7 a.m. For the 12 noon version at Disneyland, and once again, if you're not quick enough, you don't get to go. And so I know a lot of people make that case of, hey, as long as there's a standby opportunity, I can always just, if it's up to me, I will choose to wait for hours if I need to, just to ride this ride, because this is why I'm here. So this all goes back to the idea of, like, how much is your time worth? And certainly they're going to be playing with that when it comes to Genie Plus. But I'm interested to hear what you think. Disneyland, Rise of the Resistance, how do you think it's going to be handled? And are we about to see a standby only queue for a little bit here in the near future? Would love to hear what's on your mind and what you are thinking. All right, my friends, you stick around. Disney News Talk Live has so many more stories coming up. Stick with us.
Come back later for it'll be out. It's Chad and Bill and Bert. Yeah, I worked with all of them. The Birds and Abraham.
Never make out what she's saying. I know. Radio that will have uniform. Yes.
Disney News Talk Live, just talking about Rise of the Resistance and how they are experimenting with it out of Hollywood Studios and giving it a standby option now instead of the virtual queue. They're going completely standby, and we've seen some relatively decent results in terms of wait times not being out of control completely. Of course, that can change as crowds cycle in once again, especially going towards the 50th anniversary here. But the question is, are they about to do that out at Disneyland? Are we going to see that at least in a short-term experiment? Will they potentially pull that trigger and go completely standby for Rise of the Resistance in Disneyland? Terry chimes in saying, maybe we're moving back to Walt's e-ticket system. The big rides cost more. You know, Terry, it's so funny that you mentioned that. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, this Genie Plus service and the opportunity to buy certain attractions and it costing more per the bigger ride and stuff like that. I was like, this sounds awfully familiar, almost like it's an A through E ticket experience again. It's so funny that you mentioned that. So yeah, it's definitely something that I think needs to be considered here. It seems like we are going back that direction. However, and I believe that Kim, she chimed in and said, didn't cost an arm and a leg to get in the park with Walt's e-ticket system. Exactly, Kim. Yeah, that was the trade-off, right? So the park entrance fee was dirt cheap for the most part, right? It was very low, and then you paid for the attractions. That was A through E. So you would pay based on what attraction you wanted to go on, the lowest being A attraction. So the A ticket would be for the attraction that probably had the least amount of demand, and the E ticket was considered the greatest of all of the attractions. So I think that's great that you point that out, and very true. But yes, maybe we are moving back to Walt's e-ticket system, just being disguised as the Genie system. Todd chimes in saying, they had a 220-minute standby line at Hollywood Studios the first day. They went without boarding passes. How long will the line be when they start offering and giving priority to pay-to-ride guests? Exactly. Is this going to be something that will boost that all the way up? I know that the 220-minute standby line, or the peak of all of the wait time, happened pretty early on throughout the park day over at Hollywood Studios, and then tapered off and became quite manageable for the rest of the day. And I've been watching it here and there, and I've seen it get up to 120 minutes. Haven't seen it get quite back up that high to 220, but definitely, it's still commanding a huge crowd. Everybody wants to go experience this. I don't blame them. However, you're absolutely right when it comes to the pay-to-ride guests and them slicing up inventory and allotting so much room for them. Exactly what will that do? Good question, Todd. It's going to impact things. It's going to make the wait time for anybody doing standby a heck of a lot longer, right? And so I get that they're only going to offer up a select amount of pay-to-ride guests, select amount of pay-to-ride options. So I understand that they're going to keep it limited, but Disney doesn't disclose those types of numbers. So we'll never truly know exactly how limited these pay-to-ride options are going to be, especially as you think about New Year's Eve, Christmas week, that sort of thing. Those weeks are the busiest weeks of the calendar year. And if you have a pay-to-ride option, I think most people are going to plunk down the money because lines are already out of control those weeks, right? Everybody's in the parks, so all the lines are backed up, even with reservations. And so I would imagine that you're going to see a lot more people go to that pay-to-ride option. And if you're Disney, you're gonna cut it off, or are you gonna slowly open that spigot a little bit more, let a few more through? Oh, well, wait a second, the demand is there, maybe we should let it open up a little bit more. This is an opportunity for them to scale revenue, right? So they can definitely open up that spigot and let a little bit more in. But we'll all see what happens when it comes to the overall demand. So that's something to consider. Who knows how many people are really going to plunk down the money for the pay-to-ride option. So we will see what happens. All right. And Kim chimes in again saying, prepare to see Genie Plus crash the first day. Yeah, well, if history tells us anything with Disney IT, that usually happens. So, at any rate, I think you might be onto something there. Diane chimes in saying Rise is currently 75 minutes at Walt Disney World, and that is about average, so not bad. Yeah, Diane, you're absolutely right. This is something that has come to be proven here in the last few days, and that is, hey, Rise of the Resistance, not so bad in terms of a standby wait. This all, I think, really does weigh, of course, on the idea that Rise of the Resistance remains operational the whole day. So as I mentioned here a little bit earlier, this ride is notorious for having so many elements and so many different timed sequences that if it messes up just once, the whole ride shuts down, because they have to have enough time and enough consistency throughout the ride to make sure that each person, right, each guest, each ride vehicle is getting the specific experience that it needs to receive in order to go through the ride appropriately, and it all has to be timed right. So it's a very complex ride, and nobody's taking away anything from the fact that it is so spectacular, but it's also something that goes down a lot. And so when it's down, these standby queues, right, these standby lines become a truly impacted environment. So not only do they empty out all the queue space and say, all right, come back later, but people might linger, people might squat and wait around, and then that demand is twice as hard when everybody comes rushing back in. I know that the problem when they had the virtual queue set up is that obviously they tell people, hey, come back. This has happened to me a couple times at Disneyland, by the way, where they tell people, hey, come back later, we're down right now, and your pass will be honored. Well, the problem is when you come back later, 3 times the amount of people are then in that line all waiting to go in. And so the boarding group just means that eventually you'll get in. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll get in quickly. And I think I waited one time close to 40 minutes just to get into the attraction because they were trying to accommodate all those people that got dumped out of the ride earlier on in the day. So they do make pretty significant impacts in the way that the crowds flow and stuff like that. Kimma says, when I worked attractions at Walt Disney World, if a ride went down for a big issue, everyone would get a fast pass who was in the queue, and then the whole day the standby is atrocious. Exactly, Kimma. Yep. I know that Disney tries its best to accommodate everybody, take care of everybody, look after everybody. Right? They want to do the right thing. It's not their fault that the ride broke down, so they give them things like the fast passes and say, "Hey, come back. You'll be taken care of." Only then, standby is completely backed up, and it creates it creates another problem, doesn't it? Yeah. So I thank you so much, Kimma, for chiming in and sharing that with us. All right, moving along to our next story here. Speaking of lines, speaking of reservations, speaking of all of these things when it comes to managing the overall experience out at Disney World and Disneyland, something that has become far too common now is the fact that we have to make reservations to go to the parks, don't we? Well, the Disney CEO, Bob Chapek, has chimed in saying that the reservation system is the backbone of future tech at the theme parks. So for all of you wondering, are reservations going anywhere anytime soon? This might give us a hint. Blog Mickey reports that during a conversation at the Goldman Sachs 30th Anniversary Communicopia Conference, Disney CEO Bob Chapek talked a little bit about one of the driving strategies at their theme parks, which is yield management. In short, yield management is a Wall Street-focused strategy that ensures maximum efficiency for maximum profits. When discussing how the theme parks have operated following the COVID-19 pandemic and resulting shutdowns, Chapek talked about how the theme parks are improving their yield management. To improve yield management, Chapek noted that Disney has introduced a variety of technologies and will soon be introducing a suite of new offerings in the Disney Genie, Disney Genie Plus, and Lightning Lane individual attraction selections. Chapek said that the core backbone of their technology yield management strategy is the Disney Park Pass reservation system. By being able to control demand and understand the mix of guests visiting their theme parks, Disney is able to activate their technology to ensure that yield management is efficient and that their guest experience remains high. While some Disney fans had hoped that the reservation system was a solution to a pandemic-era problem, Disney executives have been consistent in their messaging about the Disney Park Pass reservation system, that it's here to stay. The messaging can be traced back to Disney Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro's statements in August 2020. Fast forward to the overhaul of the Disneyland Annual Pass program and a revamp of the Disney World Annual Pass program, and you'll find that reservations play a key role in how Disney differentiates between their most loyal fans. So there you have it. It sounds like Bob Chapek, very much a super fan of park reservations, and I know that this is something that is a hot topic to people still. Bob Chapek is certainly not a beloved figure in the Disney fan community. We hear a lot of hate on the guy. Everybody seems to think he's just out for profit. He doesn't really have a heart for the company. He's been with the company a long time, and a lot of people don't realize that he's always been in the background. He's always been in key positions that just aren't so visible. So he's been around a while, and he's also somebody that I think is going to be potentially a fall guy for the sake of all of this unfortunate pandemic news. Obviously the company is going through a tremendous amount of strain, and they're only now just starting to see a few profits here and there and getting back on track. But he's certainly not likable. And I think that's a key issue when you're a CEO of a company that's known for making people feel good on stage. He's not very likable. He doesn't come off as very charismatic. And, I'm not going to blame him for that. Public speaking is hard, right? People are not good at it. A lot of people have a huge fear of it. So I don't necessarily think that, that should be held against him. But when you are representing a company built on storytelling, you could be soft-spoken, engaging, and feel at least sincere, like Bob Iger always felt. You could be charismatic and kind of silly, like Michael Eisner always was. Certainly nobody will ever match the charisma and wit of Walt Disney, but Bob Chapek is somebody that I think will be the fall guy in the end for what has been a pretty lackluster last year and a half. We will see if the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World bounces things back Disney park-wise and things start to really rally in terms of overall cash flow again. I mean, things are getting back on track in certain segments of the business, but I definitely think that he was propped up in this position potentially to take the fall when the board comes back to renew a contract. I just get the feeling that his is not going to be renewed. Josh D'Amaro, the Disney Parks chairman, seems to have been fast-tracked through this entire process, by the way. He's somebody that has been, and he's celebrated, by the way, in the Disney fan community, even though a lot of these theme park changes and stuff like that, I mean, they have to go through him. He has to say yes. And I get it. If your boss is telling you something, you got to do it. But he's been responsible for this helm now for a while, and a lot of these decisions that are being made, people are just blaming Bob Chapek. I would just like to point out that Bob Chapek is not in charge of the parks division. Josh D'Amaro is. And like I said, I know that the boss thing is the boss thing, and you're going to do what your boss tells you, but I don't know necessarily that Bob Chapek is completely micromanaging everything Josh is doing. Remember, Disney's a huge company. I don't think Bob has all the time in the world for the parks division. He certainly didn't when he was the parks chairman. So I think that Josh might be more instrumental than you think in a lot of these questionable decisions, but he is a very likable guy. You want to talk about charisma, you want to talk about engagement. There's nobody better than Josh D'Amaro, but he has been fast-tracked through the Disney executive branch to move up very quickly. In fact, he was only Walt Disney World's president for a very brief amount of time, and then all of a sudden they announced, oh, and guess what? He's the Disney Parks chairman. You might recall on the last Disney News Talk Live that we did, we were talking about how George Kalogridis, who was the Walt Disney World president right before Josh, was just given a window on Main Street, and George is now the president of segment enrichment, and it's a very odd name, but he's responsible for a bunch of other things that kind of support the parks worldwide, but he's not the parks chairman. And I thought for sure George, given his history with the company and his tenure, was going to be the next Disney Parks chairman. It just seemed like the next logical step they were going to take, but they picked Josh. And so I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because we are going to see Josh D'Amaro move his way on through the ranks quickly. This usually is the last stop before the CEO ship, even though I've noticed that other executives at the top of the Disney company typically bounce around a little bit in the various roles and responsibilities, from chairman head to TV studio heads to general counsel. They have a lot of various positions. They have Disney Worldwide Services. There's all kinds of unique executive rankings that oftentimes people are put in at the top of the executive realm, that they get groomed in these individual roles, and then the last stop always seems to be Disney Parks chairman, and then they think about making somebody the CEO. Tom Staggs, he was the heir apparent. He had been the CFO for a while. He had done a lot of different things within Disney, was even part of the Eisner era, if I recall correctly. And Tom Staggs was the guy that everybody just assumed, because he was in that parks chairmanship, and I think because Bob Iger even sort of alluded to it, that Tom Staggs was going to become the CEO. And then the board didn't like that idea. I still, to this day, don't really understand what happened. Tom's a very likable guy. Tom did a great job running parks and resorts, and he's often forgotten about because he left very quickly. As soon as he realized there was no confidence by the board and they weren't going to move forward with him as the CEO, he just, all right, I don't have a future here. Goodbye. So he got out of there. But anyway, that allowed the rise to power of Josh D'Amaro. But let's get back on track here. So that's kind of my insight when it comes to the Disney executive branch, and having been a part of the company as long as I was, you kind of see things a little bit differently. based on what you've been through, what you've experienced. But at any rate, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to the park reservation system and dealing with park reservations now, I want to know what your view is. It's been around for a bit. It's something that you have to do at either coast. You need a park reservation to get in. It's certainly made a big impact on the Magic Key holders, the new annual pass holder group at Disneyland, to constantly have to make reservations in order to come in. I'm witnessing it more and more. People are sharing their disdain for the Magic Key program because they're not able to come in whenever they'd like. Even the people with the highest key, right? So the greatest of all the keys, still, there are some days that are completely booked out because of pandemic crowd restrictions. So I'm hearing the regret starting to set in when it comes to the reservation process, but it sounds like it's going to be around for a while. But you tell me, what's your view of the Disney park reservations? Will they ever go away? And do you find them convenient? Are you somebody that thinks that these work out to your benefit? Because certainly the reservation program is something that was developed to try and give that better experience to everybody, keep crowds at, not necessarily a minimum, but keep crowds at a more enjoyable rate. I'd really be interested to hear what you think, certainly because this is something that, as Bob Chapek said in his conference, that it allows them to be efficient while maximizing profits. So chime in. Park reservations, yay or nay? What are your views on them? I would love to hear what your perspective is. Hey friends, there are more stories, believe it or not, coming up here on Disney News Talk Live.
Want to see it? Go in!
Holy smokes, Roger! We've been there!
Explain the dip, boys. What's that?
Disney News Talk Live. Thanks so much for being with us on this broadcast, taking the place of Kingdom Report Live today. Kingdom Report Live will be back next week, so you can count on it. But today it's all about you, your opinion, and your Disney Parks news. This is the show that's very interactive, very much a thing that we like to put in your lap. So you sound off, let us know what's on your mind, let us know how you are feeling. Even if you're not watching this live, if you're watching in the future, which we realize a lot of people watch on demand, please leave a comment in the video section just below, letting us know exactly what's on your mind to any of these various stories, to any of these topics, because you really do help us gauge what is something we need to focus on in terms of overall stories and what we need to dig into in terms of future content. So be sure to leave your comments, and if you haven't hit that thumbs up button, we always appreciate it. Lets us know we're on the right track and we're doing the right things. We'll keep on doing them. All right, so we asked you just before the break a little bit about when it comes to the reservation system, right? Making reservations for Disneyland, Walt Disney World. What's on your mind, right? Are you somebody that likes it? Do you think that it's worth it? Are you somebody that thinks they'll never end, that they'll always be around? We wanted to listen to your comments here. Rosie chimed in saying, I just hate the reservation system. Damn you, BC. Well, all right. No doubt Bob Chapek getting some of that hate there. Todd says, I don't have enough room to comment about reservations or Chapek's backbone comment fully in a single comment. He says, on reservations, I personally don't mind them from a business standpoint. They make sense logistically for the reasons he cited. Plus, my family and I generally plan our visits well in advance. And Todd, that's very true. That's something that I think, especially for like Walt Disney World, reservations kind of make sense because you're already planning out a trip for some people months, some people maybe a year in advance to get to Walt Disney World. And so having that that reservation already in place is something that probably people would already be doing, right? So, I think that you side with folks that might think along the same lines as you when it comes to planning out a long planned trip. Disneyland, obviously, being a little different. It's a place that most people tend to show up to and not necessarily plan out an entire trip to, but definitely those folks that do come from out of state and the handful of people that come from across the country or around the world, they probably don't have much of an issue with reservations because they are plotting and planning well in advance. But because the demographic is so local, it does make it a bit of a challenge because not everybody can come in like they used to. Todd finishes up by saying, on JPEG's backbone comment, the reservation system is not what makes my visits to the parks magical. The cast members make my visits magical. The cast members are the true backbone of Disney parks. Todd, amen to that. Cast members are, in fact, the only reason why the magic comes to life. And over the course of my time at Disney, I've met some of the greatest human beings I've ever met that are all attracted to Disney for the same reason, and that is to help make others feel good and to help them get lost for a while in the magic. So thank you, Todd, for chiming in. Kim says, reservation system not bad, but not a fan for park hopping starting at 2. Yeah, I agree. 2 o'clock out on the East Coast, 1 o'clock on the West Coast when it comes to park hopping options as to how you can jump around and where you can go. So yeah, I agree. The park hopping thing is kind of a hassle, and I've noticed it recently, especially when I'm at my starting park of Disneyland and I want to hop over to California Adventure. I have to wait until 1, especially if I'm there for rope drop. Sometimes I can accomplish everything that I want to do and I want to hop on over to California Adventure. But now we're seeing, especially at Disneyland Resort, major backups when it comes to that 1 o'clock crossover. At least Walt Disney World, in order to get to another park, you have to take all kinds of transportation, and there's a process, right? So it kind of stretches everybody out, and you're not necessarily in big groups all trying to get to the same places because everybody has different modes of transportation, different ways that they're getting to the various parks, if they park hop at all. However, at Disneyland, it's only across the Esplanade. And so I'm now witnessing on both sides, the California Adventure group coming to Disneyland. Those lines stretch out really far and they almost touch most of the time. And then California Adventure, much the same way. Rosie says, I agree. The cast members are the backbone. They certainly want to be there. Sure isn't for the money, as they are grossly underpaid. Yep, don't disagree with you there, Rosie. And, there we go. And Adventures in the Park says, it's like tomorrow, Christmas Day, will be available for reservations, and they will be gone fast. Yep, you make a great point when it comes to the reservation process and the rolling calendar of open reservations. If you are not planning well in advance for, especially like the Disneyland side, it's becoming a real problem because if you don't squat on your, I think we talked about this in a previous Disney News Talk Live, if you don't squat on a reservation, you might not get it at all. And so you kind of have to plan out, and I think the top 2 tiers of passes only get 6 reservations at a time. So if you don't plan out your year, right? If you don't plan out your next few months, and you don't grab those reservations right away, you might lose out, and that's a huge problem. So, especially when you might want that convenience of being able to jump on over and enjoy yourself, a little bit of Disneyland during the holidays. Unfortunately, it's not something that you're able to do because it got filled up 2 months ago, and now you don't have an opportunity. Now you gotta maybe buy a ticket just to get in. But yeah, thank you so much, Adventures, for chiming in. Rick says the biggest downside of the reservation system is the impact on hoppers. Would like the option to hop as often and early as we like. Don't disagree with you there. Completely agree. And Kemma says, I think reservations are necessary when some things are still closed and there are basically no shows to space out crowds. But once those things come back, reservations are moot. I don't disagree with that either, but it looks like Bob Chapek is saying the exact opposite. So, he seems to think that this is the only way that they can keep the experience good. We'll see what happens come the holidays. So that I think this is going to be a real testing period for the Disney Park Pass reservation system. We will see what happens during the holidays coming up, because that will tell us everything we need to know about how many people they're letting in, how crazy it feels, how overwhelming it feels. Even for the 50th anniversary for Walt Disney World, I think we've noticed now a couple different times where the window of reservations and the allotment of reservations, I should say, have been completely filled up. And all of a sudden, news breaks that they've opened the door again and now let out a whole bunch of additional reservations. I think they've done that 2 or 3 times now. So we'll see. I mean, if the reservations are just there to gauge demand, that's one thing. But if you are not using them to restrict and make the experience better, like Bob Chapek says, then yeah, what is the point? Why are we doing this? I don't understand. So at any rate, Kimma, thank you so much for chiming in. All right, time to move along to our next story now. And this one is all about Primeval World. Yep, I know it's perhaps your favorite attraction, and it's mine too. Over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, demolition has begun at Primeval World, and Blog Mickey reports that a little more than a week after construction walls surrounded Primeval World, the attraction at Disney's Animal Kingdom, demolition of the attraction has begun. Disney announced the permanent closure of the attraction back in July 2020, and now it is completely being dismantled. I know. This is one of those attractions that over the course of, the last decade or so, every time I've walked into Animal Kingdom and gone into Dinoland USA, outside of Dinosaur itself, outside of that ride, I'm so turned off by this whole area, right? This whole carnival-like area. And here's the thing. I know that the Imagineers that took care of Animal Kingdom, Joe Rohde being the principal Imagineer on the entire park, I know that they've made excuses for this land, and they've shared a million times why it looks the way that it looks and why it's carnival-like and why the experience is what it is over here. And the whole idea, it's tied into the story that they found the dinosaur bones, I believe, as it goes. They found the dinosaur bones, and it became a roadside attraction, basically. And so the carnival moved in for the sake of cashing in on it. And, the Dino Institute is there, off in the distance to do all the research. Anyway, so I know that there's a whole story tied into it. But at the end of the day, if the majority of people have no idea that story exists, and they wouldn't know it just by looking at it, which, hello, California Adventure version 1, the Imagineers took a lot of time trying to explain that one. Even to its dying day of it being remodeled, we heard that a lot. That California Adventure version 1, oh my gosh, it's a love letter to California, and you don't need to go everywhere else because it's a park about California in California. And look at this great storytelling, and look at how epic it is, and look at how special it is. No. There's a reason why they spent $1 billion to overhaul the thing. It didn't work. The story didn't work. And, the park was, yes, made kind of on the cheap, right? And it felt very cheap. And that's what this area feels like. Primeval World and the whole Dinoland USA back section of this park. Again, I know that there's a story. I know that it's themed to tie into everything. And they spent a lot of money making everything look cheap, right? They spent a lot of money making it all look tacky on purpose because they thought it was funny and it tied into everything. But again, if it's lost on the majority of park goers, if this is something that's meant to be there for them, and most people don't go on these rides or go into this area to experience the things outside of Dinosaur, the ride, right? The epic, essentially, Indiana Jones adventure with dinosaurs. That's exactly, the track layout, the vehicles, everything, but they just threw dinosaurs in. Other than that epic attraction, this area, and I understand that it's mainly for kids, that's fine. Bugs Land was for kids, but Bugs Land was a lot more charming. Bugs Land had a much more engaging feel to it. Bugs Land had a story that I understood right upon walking in, I didn't have nothing. Nobody had to explain anything to me about Bugs Land. I got it right at California Adventure. I walked in and I was like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. Of course, it was simple. It told a story easily. But this section, Dinoland USA, for the perfection that is Animal Kingdom, this has always been such an eyesore. This has always been such a black eye of that park. And for it to be more of a kid-focused area, that's perfectly fine. Can we figure out a way to make this a little more synonymous with Disney quality, though? Because I always avoid it. I always ignore it. I mean, it's always been, it's a waste of my time. It's always looked like that to me. It's always looked like a waste of my time and a waste of an experience. And so I've always been very standoffish whenever I go through here. And I basically use it as a shortcut, right? I use it as a walkway to get to places, and that's about it. And it's usually as I'm on my way to Finding Nemo the Musical or something like that, or Expedition Everest. I never stop in here. And so Primeval World finally being taken down, finally being deconstructed, it's something that I know over the course of time has been alluded to as the carnival in the parking lot for Animal Kingdom. I know that a lot of people refer to it as that, and it's just never hit the mark for me. And so anyway, I think about this area, and I think about the deconstruction going on as long overdue, and certainly something that has existed for a long period of time and just didn't need to be there. I desperately can't wait to see what else is put back here. The restaurants and the theming of sort of the roadside stores and dining establishments back here. That theming's pretty cool because it feels very much like you're on, say, Route 66, or like an off the beaten path area within any town USA. But this back section here just has always felt so cheap to me. And I hate even using that word, but that's how it comes across. So now, knowing that it's finally being destroyed and the demolition is underway, I am looking to you. What should replace Primeval World, or what should replace Dinoland USA? I'm a fan of the idea of completely overhauling the son of a gun. You can leave Dinosaur, that's fine, but doing something else back there. And if you want to still make it for kids, that's fine too. Do it. But what are you most inclined to want to put back there? If you could do anything to that back corner of Animal Kingdom, what do you think belongs in that section? Should there just be a replacement for Primeval World, the attraction, or should they retheme Dinoland USA altogether at Disney's Animal Kingdom? Once again, looking for your opinion. Please sound off. Let me know what you're thinking. Animal Kingdom is a park that has been in a state of growth now for many years. We've watched as additional things have been put into effect to try and help it become more than just a half-day park. And certainly with Pandora World of Avatar, it has only expanded the interest of people coming and spending a longer period of time at Animal Kingdom. They tried a nighttime show for a while that didn't necessarily hit all the marks, and so they've retooled, and who knows, we've got that Disney kite show now coming into play at Animal Kingdom in the water area. Who knows when the Animal Kingdom nighttime spectaculars, if ever, will come back, but they've done Harambe nights and a bunch of things to try and get people to stick around into the evening hours at Animal Kingdom. Should there be something in this area that maybe if it's not focused on the kiddos entirely, right, the small kids, maybe it should be something dedicated to expanding nightlife. Again, very interested in hearing what's on your mind when it comes to Dinoland USA at Disney's Animal Kingdom. All right, my friends, stick around. We're going to take your comments and move along with more stories next. Disney News Talk Live. I'm Wade Heath for the Kingdom Report, hanging out with you today. Come on over to all the news stories that you need to hear and bringing them to you firsthand, sharing with you not only what's happening in the Disney parks world, but also listening to what's on your mind. And we were just talking about what should replace Primeval World at Animal Kingdom, especially as Disneyland USA goes through this transformation of demolishing Primeval World. What should go in its place? What should happen back there? Lori Jean chimes in saying that Dinosaur should become Indiana Jones ride. You know, Lori Jean, I've heard this said on many occasions that not only should Dinosaur be rethemed to sort of an updated Indiana Jones attraction, like we have at Disneyland, right? The Indiana Jones Adventure, but this should also be a complete overhaul to that land, and it just be an Indiana Jones themed area. What with the Dino Dig area of Dinoland USA for the kids, and completely overhauling that back corner into something Indiana Jones specific. It might be a long-standing property that has that long-standing property that has the intellectual property, I should say, to pack that punch. You know, it might be something. I don't know necessarily that a lot of kids have any idea who Indiana Jones is anymore, just because he's kind of left the pop culture scene. He's not nearly as relevant as he used to be. I know that that movie several years back with Shia LaBeouf also came out, and Harrison Ford reprising his role as Indiana Jones, and it sounded like there was a plan to reboot the franchise, and that was just one of many Indiana Jones films that were coming. I don't know where they've been, but at any rate, yeah, I've heard that said many times that Indiana Jones should replace Dinosaur, and Disneyland USA in general should become more Indiana Jones themed. In fact, our Walt Disney World reporter Garrett Hassel for years has said, this should just be Indiana Jones back here. This should all be dedicated to Indiana Jones. There's enough of a history, there's enough of a pop culture attachment that there's so much you could do in this corner with Indiana Jones, and then have Dinosaur be completely repurposed as the ride from Disneyland. While I'm not a fan of having rides transplanted from park to park, because I think that cheapens the ride, I think that cheapens the experience, and Disney's known for imagination, I do get why, because it is the exact same layout, it's the exact same track ride, right? It's the exact same everything that Indiana Jones is from Disneyland, that Dinosaur is. I get why people would say that. So thank you, Lori Jean, for chiming in. Kimma says, true, it needs the Bugs Land charm. As I was saying here a little bit ago, obviously the Dinoland USA area is something that kind of misses all of the storytelling elements in terms of helping me understand why it looks the way that it looks, helping me understand why it's so cheap, and it just feels bad, right? It just feels crappy in that corner. It doesn't feel like Disney, and it's completely lost, I think, on the majority of guests. Whereas, and I made the comparison, when you went into California Adventure's Bugs Land, which is now Adventures Campus, by the way, but when you went into Bugs Land at California Adventure, you knew exactly what was going on. You understood the story. You understood the whole theme. You felt the engagement. It was charming, right? It was cute, and it was a kids area, and it nailed it. So, maybe creating Bugs Land in Animal Kingdom is an even better idea. Now that Bugs Land has gone extinct at California Adventure, maybe recreating a Bugs Land with more epic rides, right? More things dedicated to the Bugs franchise. Maybe that's the next step that Animal Kingdom needs to take, especially for replacing a kids area with more of a kids area, because you don't want to take away more for kids to do, right? It's a kids park. So perhaps maybe doing that. Tinkershell chimes in saying, I loved Bugs Land. Sigh. So I'm going to assume that you meant I loved Bugs Land. Okay. So the no got in the way, so it confused me. But yes, I think you loved Bugs Land. Sigh. Yeah, I loved it too, for what it was, even though it had some sort of cheap off-the-shelf carnival type rides in it. The theming was just over the top perfect. It was just so great. Rick says, Bugs Land theming was so cute. Wish the ride stood up to the theming. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say those off-the-shelf carnival type rides, right? Yeah, definitely so. Enchanted Tiki Room says, a ride for the kids based on Pixar's The Good Dinosaur. This park needs more kid-friendly rides. Tiki Room, that is a brilliant idea. I feel like that was one of those films that didn't get enough traction, that just definitely did not get enough play, and sadly, I feel like it's maybe adding something in that area specific to the Good Dinosaur would help, absolutely. I just don't know if it has enough power to be rethemed to the Good Dinosaur, like the whole land. I just don't know if it has that amount of power. But you're absolutely right. Having a ride that might be attached to the Good Dinosaur, that would just be, that's very well thought. Yeah, no, that's great. I like that. Adventures in the Park says the Disney World guests really want a Matterhorn, but would that work in Animal Kingdom? And that corner of the park, I mean, that's right next to Expedition Everest, so probably not. I can't imagine having competing mountains right next to each other. That would kind of take away from the overall ambiance and the desire to have that specific theming on point. And, there's such a build-up for Expedition Everest. Again, I say Animal Kingdom, everything outside of Dinoland USA seems to be so well planned, suited, designed, created, that it's a perfect park in terms of design. At least I think. It's so over the top. But yeah, having a Matterhorn right next to it, I don't know if that would work, especially in that corner. Maybe somewhere else. Maybe Epcot. A Matterhorn might work there a lot better, especially if we were to bring Switzerland into World Showcase. That would be really cool. Todd says, I think it should be rethemed. They could theme it to Lion King or Jungle Book, for example, and still maintain Animal Kingdom type theming. That's a great plan, Todd. That whole area back there in Dinoland USA, having a Jungle Book tie-in would be, I think, a lot of fun. It does feel that, that whole section back there, it does feel like it's all off the beaten path. I just don't know what you would do with the dinosaur ride, because that would be like the lone holdout, because they're not going to just get rid of that. It's a $500 million attraction. So, maybe retheming that to the Jungle Book or the Lion King could somehow work. I just don't know how you would do that by having the Jeep transports going through the jungle or going through, the African deserts for the Lion King. But yeah, tying it into those types of various intellectual properties might be helpful. I've always appreciated Dinoland USA for the sake of it not being necessarily all intellectual property tied. I know the dinosaur movie and that dinosaur that the film or that the attraction revolves around. I know that was a movie that Disney had put out at one time. Didn't do so hot, and I think a lot of people don't even realize it's about the film or tied into the film. But the that whole back section of Dinoland, for the most part, is not intellectual property tied, it seems. And so that I've always appreciated. Anytime they can steer away from everything being IP, everything being character-driven, which I know Bob Chapek loves. The true imagination of Disney, the true magic of Disney, I think, is brought out when something isn't character-driven or character-tied. A great example is like New Orleans Square. That land is based on just another place, but an enhanced version of another place, and it's perhaps one of the best lands in all of Disney parks. That's what I mean when I talk about, not tying it to intellectual property, having Dinoland USA outside of that film and that one major attraction, having it be more of a, we found dino bones here, and there's a dig site, and the Institute moved in and stuff like that. That's a great concept. Again, it's lost on everybody, but it was a great story. I just wish more people knew it. But yeah, tying things in better for the sake of maybe something intellectual property driven, that might be helpful. Dwayne says, how about an Ant-Man ride? Yeah, you want to see Ant-Man come to Dinoland USA? I know that there's some issues when it comes to Marvel being represented in the parks, and it's so complicated, it's ridiculous, but there are certain characters that cannot be represented due to a Universal contract in Walt Disney World that are Marvel related because they are tied to a Universal agreement, but those characters can be seen at Disneyland. It's a very complicated back and forth that they've experienced, Disney, that is, when it comes to putting these characters in certain places. But I don't know if Ant-Man's allowed out east. I have no idea. He's kind of one of the newer characters to join the ranks in terms of the universe as they are portraying it. So I'm not necessarily sure if he's allowed, but if he is, that might be fun, right? Putting Ant-Man in Animal Kingdom. It's a whole tongue-in-cheek thing. It's very funny. So I like that very much. And we'll take one more here. Mattias Maximus says, I want a Paradise Falls area, but how that would work as far as attractions, I don't know. Boy, that's a great idea. That would be really nice. Yeah, that corner, there's a lot of space back there, and then even some additional space that they're not using behind the attraction itself for Primeval World. So I wonder what might be a perfect thing to put back there. Maddie is saying, Up seems like more of a grown-up movie to me. Yeah, it does, but I think the kids love Doug, and I think the kids love, the characters from that film. It does have much more of an adult overtone to it. I agree. But Doug and Russell, they have their own little meet and greet out by the entry area to Animal Kingdom, and you can oftentimes see them there. Even though I know right now they're kind of at a distance, they still have managed to have a great deal of Wilderness Explorer presence out at Animal Kingdom. So thank you, Mattias, for chiming in. All right. Well, let's move on to another story. This is great news. I'm super excited to hear this. And, it's not fake enthusiasm, I promise. I really am pumped to know that we are about to get the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show back. Did you know it was coming back? It's coming back. So, yes, officially, the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show is set to return October the 1st for Disney World's 50th anniversary. Blogmaker reports that according to the Walt Disney World website, the Let the Magic Begin Welcome Show will return to Magic Kingdom on October the 1st. The Welcome Show has been missing since the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the theme parks. The snapshot of the Let the Magic Begin return, I should say, for Friday, October the 1st, 2021, is something that was recently found, not just on the website, but also on the app. When I talk about how certain entertainment is returning, certain magic is coming back, this is what I'm referring to. I am so pumped to know that the Welcome Show is heading back to the Magic Kingdom. This is something that absolutely starts the day on the right note for me. I am a true fan of this show. Now, I was a bigger fan of the first version. Okay, so if you're somebody that is old school like me, you probably remember the train station version of the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show. And up until, I think it was only a few years ago, so it hasn't been that long. But up until a couple years ago, the train station Welcome Show was something that everybody got to enjoy. And everyone, unfortunately, had to be packed into that area just in front of the train station outside of the turnstiles. So that section was dedicated for the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show. Unfortunately, the problem became, I think, just crowds were too overwhelming for that small area. And so I think the idea became, let's just move this down to the castle stage and we can do a much bigger, much more grander type of presentation because we'll have all the elements and we'll have a stage that was built for a show. Whereas the train station Welcome Show was all about the train coming in. It was the family of the day, would welcome everybody, and usually it was the mayor of Main Street or a citizen of Main Street would be on the mic and they would introduce the family of the day to help open the Magic Kingdom. And then Mickey would come out and the train would bring in all the characters. And it was just so magical. It all felt so, there's the word again, organic. It felt so organic as to what would happen, and all those characters would arrive, and the experience would be something to start the day off on the right note and just feel so good. And the mayor of Main Street, USA, who unfortunately has passed on in recent years, but Christopher George Weaver, the mayor of Main Street, USA, was somebody who could do that Welcome Show on the train station better than anybody. That guy had a voice that could boom and a pitch that could hit, and he just knew how to hit all the right notes for the sake of making you feel like you had been transported to another dimension, right? The magical dimension, if you will. You've been passported to the Magic Kingdom, and he knew how to make you feel special. And he'd welcome that family of the day, and then there'd be a small level fireworks show that would go off in the train station. Well, in recent years, they moved that back to the Cinderella Castle stage show. They basically turned it into a stage show, and it's very short. It's only like 5-8 minutes in length, but there's a lot of characters that also come out on this stage. And while it doesn't have the same sort of punch that I felt like the show originally did that was on the train station, to have the Welcome Show return on October the 1st for the 50th anniversary of Disney World, that's very heartfelt to me. That really is so special. So knowing that is coming back for the 50th kickoff. Man, that's, like I said, sentimental, heartfelt, right? That feels good. I'm really happy to hear that entertainment is kicking back up again, and we're about to see the world's most magical celebration become something that will hopefully get people back into traveling, back into the swing of things, and back into enjoying the theme parks once again. I know that it's been a slow burn here for the last year of people, feeling comfortable enough to get back into the swing of things, feeling comfortable enough to go to a place like theme parks. And, no doubt that while all the risks are certainly something that everybody should consider, and certainly something that everybody should think about before their trips, the Walt Disney World Resort and the Disneyland Resort have done a great job really trying their best to make sure that all of the precautions are in place while still delivering on that overall Disney Parks experience, right? That overall Disney magical feel. And the 50th anniversary, they seem to finally be getting things back into the, I'll say, more normal swing of things. So getting our Let the Magic Begin show back is so cool, and I'm certainly excited to hear what you think when it comes to getting this show back. Are you somebody that even woke up early enough for the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show? That would be something that I would be very interested in. Not only have you arrived early enough to see the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show, but in your opinion, is it worth it? Do you think seeing the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show at Walt Disney World is something that, is this worth getting up extra early just to go see? Does it start your day right? Do you need it to start your day? Or have you completely ignored it all these years and didn't even realize there was a Magic Kingdom Welcome Show? Oh, I'd love to hear your perspective as always. Let me know in the comments section. All right, friends, Disney News Talk Live wraps up with your comments next. Disney News Talk Live time. Wade from the Kingdom Report hanging out with you as always. And we were just talking before the break about the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show coming back October the 1st. Let the Magic Begin Welcome Show returning officially for the 50th anniversary. And we asked what you thought about that in terms of the show finally coming back after the pandemic absence. Kimma says, good morning, good morning. Yes, the original soundtrack for the Magic Kingdom Welcome Show. Got to tell you, Kimma, it was one of my absolute favorites, especially on that train station, having the citizens of Main Street saying and singing and getting us all amped up for the day. Kim says, Welcome Show is so cute, and it starts the day's magical experiences. Couldn't agree more. It's definitely something that I always go out of my way to see at least once during a trip. I know that some folks don't like the whole rope drop experience, but I feel like if I miss out on it, I miss out, right? Like it's part of the day. I have to experience that. I have to go through it. So thank you, Kim, for chiming in. Rosie says, looking forward to experiencing the Welcome Show again. Have had my park reservation for months. Thanks, Wade, for all you do. Well, Rosie, thank you. I so appreciate you tuning in and always being a part of the broadcast and chiming in with your thoughts. Interested to know when you are heading back to Walt Disney World. And yes, having this as an addition, right? Having this thrown back into the mix for the 50th anniversary gets me so excited. It gets me so amped up because, again, it's just another level of normalcy kicking back into gear for the Magic Kingdom, especially as we roll on into the 50th anniversary. Tiki Room says, like you, the train station version was so magical. The train coming into the station with all of the characters on board was just so enchanting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mean to harp on the stage version in front of Cinderella Castle because it has its own merits, right? And I know that they did it mainly for the sake of crowding and they tried to make it more comfortable for everyone. Totally understand that. But yeah, it's one of those things where the train station just felt so much more special to me. And I miss it. Every time I come into Magic Kingdom, I think about that welcome show. And I also think about, like I said a little bit earlier, the mayor, Christopher George Weaver of Main Street USA, who's no longer with us. Unfortunately, he passed on a few years back, but he was somebody that knew how to belt out that welcome show better than anybody when it was, uniquely the responsibility of a citizen of Main Street to be the host. When it wasn't the mayor, sometimes it was the fire chief. When it wasn't the fire chief, sometimes it was the president of the women's club. When it wasn't her, it was usually Scoop Sanderson, the Main Street Gazette reporter. Some of those characters don't even exist anymore on Main Street USA. So a lot of history, a lot of heritage, a lot of magic that is attached to that show and that destination. But having it back in any capacity, let alone the stage show version, especially on the 50th anniversary, is going to be so cool. I also wonder if they're going to do something unique, attached to the 50th anniversary for this welcome show, being that it's the first time it's coming back, being that it is one of those that is going to be the morning of perhaps the most in-demand day that we've seen in recent years. Perhaps they're going to do something special for the 50th anniversary. We'll see. I know that usually on the Magic Kingdom anniversary day, they usually hold a little ceremony, a little gathering in front of the castle. Sometimes they'll shoot off some low-level fireworks, and they'll do a presentation, or the president of Disney World will be out there. They'll get some characters involved. Same thing that they do with Disneyland. They will bring a bunch of characters out in Town Square. Sometimes the mayor of Main Street will say something. Sometimes they'll have a various character come out, and they'll have overvoicing done for, say, Mickey or something like that to celebrate the big anniversary, Disneyland band, that sort of thing. So perhaps there will be something tied into the big 50th, and maybe we will see something extra special happen during that welcome show. As mentioned, Tyler and Katrina from the Kingdom Report they just landed, as a matter of fact, out in Walt Disney World. They are heading to the Magic Kingdom and going to be experiencing the parks all this week and into next week to enjoy themselves some 50th anniversary fun. So be sure to check back here on the Kingdom Report YouTube channel to not miss out on any of the 50th festivities. Lots of videos will be arriving here in the next couple days, as they will be there for all of the magic and be experiencing that firsthand. Kemma chimes in saying, cast members make magic for other cast members too. I never made it to the Magic Kingdom welcome show, so when I picked up a shift at Strollers, in 2017, they let me go watch it. I'm glad I got to see it. Yeah, for those that missed out, look it up on YouTube shortly after this broadcast if you want to go take a look. There's plenty of videos out there of the Magic Kingdom welcome show on the train station. It is so special, and try and find a version with the mayor, and you'll see what I mean. If you play it against other versions of other Main Street citizens who all did a fine job on their own, but the mayor just would knock it out of the park every single time. That guy's voice was spectacular. Rosie says, looking forward to the welcome show. Had my October 1st park reservations for months. Oh, got it. October 1st. So you will be there. That's awesome. Congratulations. Let us know how it goes. Let us know what you experience. And share with us exactly what you go through for the welcome show. I'm sure everybody will be arriving very early that day just to get into the park, because it is a huge anniversary day. All right, my friends. Well, I can't thank you enough for being a part of today's broadcast. Like I said, in place of Kingdom Report Live today, we have Disney News Talk Live. This is the show that we do periodically, especially as an attempt to cover all of the latest and greatest news stories that are going on out at the Disney theme parks. And it's more specifically about you and about all of your opinions. So that's why we do this broadcast. Occasionally it happens during the week too. Sometimes we'll have it fill in for Kingdom Report Live and just get an opportunity out there for the sake of hearing from you and getting your voice back in action for the sake of hearing what's on your mind and what you think might be going on at the Disney theme parks. Always interested to hear what you are thinking when it comes to Disney news stories, and that's why we do this. So I like to make sure that as much as you hear from us on Kingdom Report Live, it's always really great when we can hear from you and get your opinions back in real time to things that are going on and that we are experiencing firsthand. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that about wraps things up for us. If you haven't done so already, I do say make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure that notification bell is turned on so that you don't miss a gosh darn thing. And on top of that, make sure that if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, we always appreciate it. It lets us know that we are on the right path and we can continue doing content just like this. Don't miss out on this week's Disneyland in-park update that has recently come out. I drop by Disneyland almost weekly now to bring you all the latest updates, everything happening at the happiest place on earth. And as a matter of fact, as of this broadcast, which is Saturday, tomorrow, check in with Garrett Hassel, our Walt Disney World reporter. He'll be at Magic Kingdom sharing with you all of the latest and greatest things that you need to be aware of, especially during your next Magic Kingdom trip. If you aren't doing his must-dos, you might just be missing out. All right, my friends. For the Kingdom Report, I'm Wade Heath. We will see you next time for another edition of Disney News Talk Live.